And let me jump into POGOs, no? Because there are two, again, no? There are two, um, these are online games, but two different business models. No? One income is being derived from abroad, from offshore, and one income being derived from onshore. I'll go into POGOs, no? Which is the business model wherein income is being derived from offshore. So I'll go into that in this discussion because that's also a very controversial industry right now. And I'll ask DOFs their views on this matter. And I also want to get their position on this POGO controversy happening in our country. So we recognize ASEC Carlo Adriano. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. We have prepared a very short slide. Mr. Chair, in general, the DOF supports the prohibition of POGO operation due to the social cost and reputational risk they entail. In several hearings in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, we have expressed that the economic benefits of keeping POGOs are outweighed by its social costs and negative consequences that have economic implication. However, we would like to note that the position and the coverage of the cost-benefit analysis of the Department of Finance is limited only to POGOs, and it does not include the online gambling industry as a whole. Next slide. So our estimates show that the net cost of POGO operation is around 99.52 billion annually. The estimated total economic benefits from POGOs amount to 166.49 billion pesos annually, while the estimated total economics cost amount to 265.74 billion pesos annually. So the economic benefits includes the indirect economic benefits. What are example of this indirect economic benefits? So POGO pay taxes, and the taxes they paid will be used by government for its program, for instance, infrastructure program, which will have indirect, what we call indirect economic benefits. Another example are the compensation, but salaries, basically, the salaries to laborers. So if they have salaries, then these laborers will have income to buy things, which may generate more economic activity. So those are examples of indirect economic benefits. On the other hand, we also computed, in the cost side, we also computed the indirect economic cost. This will include, because of the reputational risk, lesser investments, etc. However, we would like to note that, as you can see in the social cost, we cannot identify a number for that social cost. Next slide, please. So for the estimated, so this slide provides you the breakdown of the benefits and the cost. So the estimated economic benefits include government revenues, which include tax revenues from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, as well as gross gaming revenues from Pagcor. Other estimated direct economic benefits include estimated income from office and residential space rentals, transportation, and additional demand from private consumption of employees and entities. On the other hand, the indirect economic benefits include the multiplier effects of these associated economic activities, as well as the fiscal multiplier of government revenues earned from POGOs. For the economic multiplier, we use the input-output 2018 model. For the fiscal multiplier, we use the actual data. For the economic cost, the estimated economic cost of POGOs include direct, and indirect costs of allowing POGO operation. This includes the effects of reputational risk, which have an impact on foreign direct investments, as well as the negative impact of criminal incidents in terms of our attractiveness as a tourist destination. Again, we note that the estimated economic cost exclude the social cost of POGOs, which we deem to be unquantifiable. This includes the loss of life, physical and psychological harm to victims, and the impact on the community, such as increased sense of fear and anxiety associated with illegal POGO activities. So based from this slide, as you can see, the benefits is significantly less than the estimated cost, and hence a net cost of around 99.52 billion annually. That ends my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ASEC. Well, ASEC, we all know DOF is in charge of raising revenues. In fact, when it comes to giving away incentives, I know for a fact that DOF is very prudent in that, because every centavo collected by DOF is carefully managed, and it makes sure the DOF makes sure that the tax effort is always efficient. We maximize our assets. We maximize the potential of revenue generation. However, in your slide, can we just flash it again? That based on your cost-benefit analysis, that the cost by POGOs, because of its criminal effects, because of the social ills, outweighs the revenue being generated for government. And that includes also indirect economic benefits. No? What are the indirect economic benefits? Just so that everyone will understand the particulars of that indirect economic benefits.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So basically, for instance, tax revenue is a direct economic benefit that we get from POGO activities. But again, once we receive the tax revenues, we use this to implement government programs, like infrastructure program, social programs, and that will have an effect to the economy. So that's what you call an example of an indirect benefit, Mr. Chair. And then, for instance, for the wages of the laborers employed in POGO, so since they receive salaries, they have some disposable income, and basically they buy goods or services, which will further increase economic activities.
And in this slide also, you also demonstrated indirect economic costs. So what are those, the indirect economic costs?
Mr. Chair, we have, for instance, yung foregone investment due to crime. We also have foregone revenues from tourism because, basically because of that that negative, negative picture of having POGO activities in the Philippines may, in fact, affect the tourism industry as well. So those are included in the indirect cost.
You mentioned also earlier that social costs cannot be quantified. Can you explain that further? I know that this has been a tricky portion to quantify it, no? But just to elaborate it further, can you spread into the records, or can you elaborate how come social cost is very difficult to quantify, and yet, you know, it's there. We all know it's there. No? The killing, human trafficking, all of those things. So. But how come it's very difficult to quantify? No?
Mr. Chair, an example is, yung loss of life. It's very hard to quantify. For instance, a loss of life definitely entails a cost to the society. Now, you have to compare that cost to the benefit, for instance, if that person remains alive. You have to basically know his or her own productivity, etc. So it's very hard to actually have a monetary cost on the life of a person.
So, ASEC, just just to give you, just to be more precise, no? Tax revenues from BIR is about 10 billion. Then gaming revenues about 13. These are revenues coming to government, diba? These are our collections, no? So we're talking about 13 billion, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the 10.32 billion are tax revenue collected by the BIR from POGOs, and the 3.15 billion is the gaming revenues from Pagcor.
Okay. And then the private consumption, these are VAT, no? Correct?
Yes, it includes VAT.
But the direct ones, yung talagang pumapasok from BIR or the direct ones coming from the POGO companies is 10 plus 13.
Yes.
Tama?
Yes.
All right. So in other words, the DOF is willing to forgo 13 billion because of the social ills and the cost being generated by POGOs. And the cost, it comes in the form of foregone investments, foregone tourism, and DOF is willing to forgo that 13 billion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Basically, the idea of a cost-benefit analysis, like for instance, you may already mention the direct benefits in terms of tax revenues. Now, how does it translate to cost, for instance? As you can see there, there's an impact to investment. So basically, there's lower investments because of POGO activities. And we know that if there are more investment, we could have actually collected taxes from these supposed investments if they have come in. So again, you have to balance out. And in this particular case, we can see that the costs are definitely higher than the benefits. So although we are foregoing some tax revenues if ever there will be a ban of POGO, but that can be compensated if there will be more investment that will be coming in because of the ban on POGO.
That's what I'm driving at. No? We're foregoing 13 billion, but what do we replace it with? No? And that's my question. And your answer to that is we will increase investments, hopefully by 55 billion, because that's forgone, diba? In 55. And impact on tourism, that's 29 billion, because that's forgone. No? And forgone because of reputational risk, reputational damage, and we showed earlier that the news is not confined to our country. It also was reported in CNN, Reuters, and in some other international news agencies. And in fact, personal friends of mine from abroad also, every now and then will forward to me news in their country about all of this human trafficking, because human trafficking is transnational. It's not confined in our borders. We're talking about citizens from Malaysia, citizens from China, citizens from Vietnam. So it's also reported in their countries. And now we have an element of money laundering, which is also a form of transnational crime. So I'm sure it will be reported in their country. So what I'm saying is, all of this negative reporting is coming out of the Philippines. And if you are a tourist and you're an investor, that will have negative impact, or that will create negative impression in your decision making.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you are correct. And if there will be lesser investments, that means lesser tax revenues as well. If there will be less tourism as well, that means lesser tax revenues on the tourism sector and the multiplier of the tourism sector.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Asek. Well,